Are you working harder than ever but not seeing the financial results you really want? Well, today we're going to tear down some of the biggest myths about making money and give you a new formula, one that might just change how you see your business forever. Okay, let's just dive right in with a question that gets to the heart of it. Why aren't you making as much money as you want? You might think it's your product, maybe your service, or your marketing. But the real answer, it's probably much simpler and, honestly, a little more shocking. It boils down to this. The single biggest reason is that you're selling to people who don't have the money to give you. You're fighting tooth and nail in this super crowded space for, let's face it, a tiny piece of the pie. So, the crucial point, the real game changer, is we need to change where you're looking for that pie. To really get this, we've got to pull back the curtain on how wealth is actually distributed. And I'll warn you, the reality, it's probably not what you think. Okay, let's do a little thought experiment. Imagine we could take all the household wealth in the United States, we're talking trillions of dollars, and shrink it all down to just $100. And then we distribute that $100 among 100 people. Each person represents 1% of the population. So how would that money actually get split up? So if we look at the bottom 50 people, that's half the entire population, right? Their combined wealth, wait for it, would be a measly $2.50. I mean, all of them together have less than you'd pay for a fancy cup of coffee. And guess what? This is where most businesses are competing. All right, now let's move up the ladder a bit to the next 40 people. This is basically the middle class. Now, their combined share of that $100 is $28. Yeah, it's a lot more, but you got to remember, that's still spread thin across 40 different people. Okay, now we're really getting somewhere. The next 9 people, these folks represent the upper middle class and the start of the wealthy. They hold a combined $38. That's a huge jump in concentration. But all of that absolutely pales in comparison to what we're about to see with that final person at the very, very top. That single person at the top, just the top 1%, holds $32 all by themselves. Just think about that for a second. One person has more wealth than the entire bottom 90% combined. It's staggering. And this is the core lesson. This is the whole thing. You've got to stop fighting with thousands of other businesses for a tiny slice of that $2.50. The strategic move, the one that completely changes the game, is to go where the money actually is, the top 10%, who hold nearly 70% of all the wealth. So, how does this crazy wealth distribution map onto your business, like your actual profits? Well, it turns out it lines up almost perfectly with a super famous business principle that most of us have heard of, but honestly, very few truly apply. I'm talking about the Pareto principle, the 80-20 rule. In business, it basically means that something like 80% of your results, like your profit, come from just 20% of your efforts, or in our case, 20% of your customers. But here's the real secret, the part people miss. This principle is fractal. It just keeps repeating itself over and over again. Let's see this in action, right? In a typical business, if you have 100 customers, your top 20 customers are going to be responsible for about 80% of your total profit. Most people kind of know this and they stop there, but we're going to keep digging. Now, what happens if we apply that 80-20 rule again, but just to that top 20%? Well, we find something pretty incredible. Just 4% of your total customers, that's 20% of the 20%, they generate a staggering 64% of all your profit. You see how the concentration is getting more and more intense? And okay, let's do it just one more time. Applying the rule again shows us that your single best customer, the top 1%, is likely responsible for over half, 51%, of your entire business's profit. It's just like the wealth distribution we saw. All the real profit is concentrated right there at the very top. So, okay, we know where the money is. Now, how in the world do you build a business to actually capture it? Well, the most effective way is to think from the top down, not the bottom up. Think about Tesla. They didn't start with a cheap mass market car. No way. They started with the Roadster, a $250,000 supercar for a tiny, tiny market. Then they used that prestige, that brand halo, and the profits to create the Model S, and eventually the more affordable Model 3. That story works. Now flip it. Imagine a budget brand trying to suddenly sell a luxury car. It just doesn't land the same, does it? Starting high anchors your brand with quality from day one. This top-down approach gives you three massive advantages. First, you build a much, much stronger brand perception. Second, it's actually operationally easier to serve a few high-paying clients than it is to serve thousands of low-paying ones. And third, and this is the big one, your profit margins are just astronomically higher. Okay, let's get super practical. How do you actually structure your prices to capture this top slice of the market? There's a really simple but incredibly powerful formula for this.
All right, imagine you've got 10 customers and they're each paying you $10. Simple enough. That's $100 in revenue. Now, what if you create a premium pro tier that costs 5 times more, so $50, and you only expect 20% of your customers, just 2 of them, to take you up on it? Look what happens to the math. The 8 customers on the base plan still pay you $10, that's $80. But your 2 premium customers, they pay $50 each for another $100. Just like that, you've literally doubled the revenue of your business.
And here is the real magic. This is the part that changes everything. That extra $100 in revenue, it's almost pure profit. I mean, the cost to serve those 2 premium customers isn't that much higher, if at all. So while your revenue doubles, your profit can increase by 5, 6, even 10 times. This is the move that takes a business from just surviving to absolutely thriving. Now, listen, the biggest thing stopping you from doing this isn't market demand or how hard it is to build. It's you. It's your own mindset, your own belief about what someone is willing to pay. We judge what others will spend based on what we would spend, and that is easily the most expensive mistake you can possibly make. Let me share a quick story with you that just perfectly illustrates this. It's about a business owner who was completely burned out, totally ready to quit. He was literally making a series of calls to cancel on his last few clients. But one of those phone calls changed absolutely everything. So he's on the phone, and this client just won't take no for an answer. The guy keeps pushing, "Look, just tell me, how much to show me what you do?" And the owner, he's frustrated, he just wants to get off the call. So he decides to throw out a number so ridiculously, absurdly high that he's sure the client will just hang up. You gotta remember, he was used to selling a $500 package. So he just blurts it out, $6,000, 12 times his normal price. And then there's just silence on the other end of the line. And then he hears 2 simple words from the client: "Done. When do we start?" In that single moment, an entire lifetime of his beliefs about money just shattered. He didn't just make a sale, he realized his value was never the problem. The problem was who he was selling to. That day, he went on to make $60,000 from calls he was making to quit his business. So, how do you actually put this into practice? Here are 3 concrete steps you can take right now. First, stop selling from your own wallet. Assume everyone you talk to has money. Just assume it. Second, for your next premium offer, price it 5 to 10 times higher than your current one. Just try it. And third, you have to expect more no's. Getting a ton of yeses all the time just means you're too cheap. The sweet spot for pricing isn't where you get the most customers, it's where you make the most money. So I'll just leave you with this. The money is out there, and so are the customers who are more than happy to pay for real value. They aren't looking for the cheapest option, they are looking for the best one. Your highest paying customer is out there waiting. The only question is, what are you going to sell them?